planning to cover is budget, the GL budget. So when we talk about budget, so the other part we are not covering it, but I just wanted to highlight that we have these capabilities in Oracle Cloud. Okay. So now when we talk about budget, so we have two things. So one is the EBCS or the budgeting cloud service. So that is different from the GL budget. Okay, because there you'll have certain other option as well in terms of writing the rules and the other things. So what we will have here in GL is that so we will have basically the certain account code combination. So based on which we will validate against the budget or the fund availability. Okay, so to simplify, so this is about your expense accounts, which you might want to control your cash outflows, wherein we will set budget for the certain account code combination. Let's say $1 million is the budget if you are allocating for the year, so which you can do. Okay. So now, firstly, to enable the budget, you will have to enable the budget options. Okay, so the first configuration for us would be so under financials, if you see, so if you come down, so you will have the budget controls. So I'll just say all task. Okay, so the budget calendar is just similar to the accounting calendar. So only difference that we will have is that so we will see this is used only for the budgetary purpose. Okay, so if I enable this checkbox, this will be used only for the budgetary purposes. Other than that, like the transaction or the accounting or the journal entries, for which I will not be able to use this particular calendar. Okay. But then if I want to use my accounting calendar at the GM, sorry, at the budgets, so I'll be still able to use that. Okay, so probably we'll use the existing one which we created, I think 3 or 4 days back. So that is the one that we are going to use. Okay, so the first option would be manage budgetary control. So here we'll be enabling the budgets. Okay, so since this is the test environment, you will have the enablement already done. But in the fresh instance, you will not have these options. So probably you might want to enable the budgets for that. Okay. So now, first thing is that you will have the features. So these are the features. So first thing, if you see the summary accounts. So now, what do we mean by summary accounts? It is the parent account. In an understanding, so let's say I have liability account. So liability account or the parent liability is my parent account. So under which I can, so liability is nothing but we are liable to pay to someone. Okay. So now I could be paying to my employees as a salary. I could be paying it to the utility bills or the suppliers. So there could be different payables. Okay. So now these different payables are my child accounts and the actual liability or the high level liability account. So this is my parent account. So now this parent account is what we are referring to the summary account. So do we want to enable this budget at parent account or the summary accounts? Okay. So ideally we will not enable it at parent level. So it is at the child account because when we enter a particular journal entry, so it is at the child account or the child level entry that we are making. So we will not be able to make the parent account at the transaction. So this is only for the purpose of reporting and the analytics. Okay. So, but still, if we want to enable at the parent account, which means that let's say under this parent account, I have 10 child accounts. I wanted to enable budgetary control for all these 10 accounts. So in that case, probably you can use this option. Okay, but then we have this option as well. Okay. So then we have the synchronization. So this is just to maintain the hierarchy. So hierarchy is nothing but, as I said, the parent and child accounts. So this combination is what we are referring to the hierarchy. So if at all we want to synchronize this. So this is an automatic process. So if not, probably we'll have to run a schedule process and do that. So instead, you can just enable this option. Okay. And then you have this liquidation. So liquidation is part of budget. So which means that we have something called an cash as the revenue accounts. So that is when we will use this. Okay. And then the control budget definition. So this is what we will enable basically. So under which, if you see here, so we have the primary ledger. Okay. So now if you see this particular ledger, or let me try to copy the one. I think, yeah, this is the one that we created. Okay. So now the others, if you see, so we saw the business unit as well. Since we did not create the business unit yet, we will not have this option. Okay. So now, for now, we will have only the ledger level options. So probably when we see the payable or the other subledger modules, so we'll come back to this page and we'll see how to enable it for the business unit. But it's more or less same options that we will see there. Okay, so I'll just select this particular line and I'll say edit. Okay, so here you will see two things. So one one is enabling the budgetary control, and the second thing was enabling the encumbrance accounting. So now what is the difference between the budgetary control and then the encumbrance account? So the difference is that, so encumbrance is at the purchase order level, meaning if I want to control my raw material accounts or the raw material procurement, so wherein I can use the encumbrance accounting option. Okay, so wherein we have a separate accounting method also saying it's the standard encumbrance accounting. Okay, but then when we talk about budget, it is for the particular account code combination that we are talking, mostly for the expense account combinations. So even the asset accounts, which we will not have mostly, but then we have option to enable it, meaning that we will have to restrict at the account rules. We will see how to define the rules and the other options. But then this is where basically we will do our base configuration or enable the budget. So the moment I click enable, I'll have other options. So this budget is not used only at GL level or not only at the payable or the receivable level. So it is also used at the project. So now how does this budget works at the project level? So if I'm using a project, so I can have budget at two places. So one is at the GL and the other one is at the project. So whatever the budget that is created there at the project model, so that will be made as an read-only entry in the GL. So now, if I want to enable ledger budget and the project budget, so probably I can use this option. But in our case, we are using ledger only. We are not going to see the project part of it. So I'm saying it's ledger only. Okay. And then we have, so these are certain controls that we can make use of it. Okay, so for instance, if I enable this option, which means that the transaction date or the journal entry date, which falls outside the date range, which means that the control budget is, let's say, from March, but I'm entering the transaction, let's say, January or February. So this is going to fail saying that invalid date. Okay, so that's the option that we have here. So for now, I'm just disabling this option. So now if I come down, so I have this option called, and so these are the segments that we created. If you remember, we created one for company and the other one for department and then the account. Okay, so this probably I can enable it. Okay, so this is one option which I can do. Okay. So here, if you see, so if I want to use a specific value, so which means that inside company, I can have company called 100, 200, 300. So now if I want to use specific value, I can use it. But then I don't want to restrict at the value level. So I'm saying all because the restriction of value and the other things, if at all I want to enable, I can do it at the rules level. I don't need to do here. Okay, so that is the thing. And then we have something called exception. So now what is exception? Which means that if I don't want to enable budget for certain categories, so I can enable it here. So let's say I don't want to enable it for asset module or the source as asset. So, so I can enable it here so that the budgetary control will not work for that particular journal source. It will be used only for, let's say, manual journal. So other than manual journal, if I'm adding here as an exception, so only the manual journals will be used. Okay, so again, this we don't have to use it at this stage. We have the next setup where we can use that. But optionally, we can use it here also. Okay. Yeah, so this is about this. But by default, you will have these uh, journal sources. Okay, so first thing is the revaluation and then the visit accounting, open balances, cost accounting, all these things. Okay. Probably if I want to add more, I can see. And then we have the control, sorry, the cash balances. Okay. So if I want to basically enable it for the uh, payments and the other options, so probably I can use this one for the budgeting at the business unit level. But then we are not looking at the business unit level, okay? Because that we will see when we come to the payable module configuration. Okay, so I'm not touching this at this point. So probably this also we will come back when we see the payable module. Okay. So this is about enabling the budgetary control. So I'll just say journal description line. Where is this? Or else I'll try to probably disable this. Okay, let me try to close this business. Let me come back to this page of it. Maybe I'll come back to this cash controls and we see the payable model. Okay, I think we did not complete this setup. So what we did is that basically we took this US primary ledger. So that's the choice. Okay, maybe we'll quickly complete this configuration and we'll go back to the budget reconciliation. Okay, so what we saw is ledger options and then the DST that we'll have to attach and then the legal entity. Firstly, let me assign the legal entity. This is the one that we added. So I'm just associating this. And then we will have to assign the balancing segment value. Since we have only one legal entity associated, I'm just associating at the ledger level. Probably if you have more than one legal entity, you can go for this one at the legal entity level. So this is our default company account or the BSC for this particular business unit or the ledger. Okay. I'm just saying save and close. So these are all done. Okay. So let me submit this configuration and complete the ledger configuration. Okay, so now let me go back to the budget configuration. So now let me try to enable the same options. Now it is enabled. The issue is that the ledger is not completed. The ledger configurations were not done. So that's the reason we did not get it. Okay. So now here if you see, so the budgetary control is enabled, but the procurement accounting type is not enabled. It is because the business unit level we did not enable it since we don't have the business units created. Okay. So this is about enabling the budgets. Okay. So now the second step would be to create the control budgets. I'll say manage control budgets. Okay. So so to create the control budgets, we have two options basically. So one is that the setup and maintenance, and the other one is that you can go to the dashboard and where you will find the budget tile and you can go for manage control budgets. Okay, so I'll just say add. Okay, so let me give a name for the budget. Let's say monthly budget. So I'm not creating a specific calendar for this because I'm trying to use the monthly calendar or enabling the monthly calendar. So I don't need to use a separate calendar for this purpose. So I'm using the same calendar which we used for the ledger creation, that is accounting calendar. Okay. So here we will find the periods that we define for the ledger creation. So that is starting from Jan 2025 till December 2025. So, so this would be my budget start period and this would be my budget end period. So now there could be multiple budgets because the reason why we will have multiple budgets is that so some companies follow annual budget. So in that case, it is not that we will create probably let's say for 10 years. So if you are creating the budget, so it is not that I'll have one setup saying that starting from Jan 2025 to let's say December 2035. Instead, we will have separate annual budget. Okay, so which will range from Jan to December. Okay, so we might have different budgets for different years. Okay, so I'm creating this particular budget for 2025. So now my starting period is Jan 2025 and the end period is December 2025. Okay. So here, if you see the source budget, I have control budget, I have EPM financial module, I have Hyperion module, and no budget. Ideally, we will not use it because the purpose of this is to use the budget. Okay. So now the one that we are going to use is other. Okay, so other than that, we have the control budget also. So why do we have control budget? Because this screen, what we are looking at, this is nothing but the control budget. So meaning, so let's say I wanted to have a yearly budget, but then I wanted to have this funds added on periodical basis. So for that, we can create two control budgets and we will have one as parent and one as child. So now if I have created already the parent budget with the option of others, and now if I want to associate that budget with this, so probably I can say the control budget. So here if you see, I will have all the control budgets created. Okay, so this is kind of a parent and child thing. And the other two are kind of an integration. So let's say I am saying EPM. So EPM is the one that I explained initially, wherein we have the budget cloud services. Okay, so that is another module altogether. Okay, so that is part of EPM product family. So if we are using that, probably we can enable this and create EPM budgets here. Okay. So the reason why we are creating budget for EPM and GL is that this will create basically the cubes. If you remember when we are seeing the ledger options, so we saw something called an space cube. So similar to the ledger cubes, we will also have the budget cube. Okay. So this budget cube is what we will give it to the EPM team. Okay. So EPM configuration we will not do. It is a separate team which they will do. So what we will do is that we will create the cube and we will give to them because the budget balance will be added here and this will be passed to the EPM team. Okay. So that's the background for this. And similarly, we have the Hyperion planning also. So Hyperion planning is again another module or the other application which we will use. Okay. So for now, I'm selecting others. I think this has some naming issues. Let me come back again. Yeah. So now we got it. Which currency we gave for that? Um, okay. Mm, check that once. Okay, I will not. Okay, so corporate is the standard one. Probably I'll explain how to upload the rate also. So for now, I'm selecting the corporate. So if at all you want to probably create a custom one, you will be able to create it. But then corporate is what mostly we will use it. Okay. So now why do we use this rate type is that? So let's say I have a foreign currency transaction created. So that is my functional currency or the ledger currency is INR, Indian rupees. So now, if I am probably, let's say, paying a supplier who's operated from, let's say, US or New York. So now this will be US is the currency. Okay. So now in this case, if I want to determine the profitability and the rate of this particular currency at this moment, so I will need somewhere that I need to store that against this particular currency. This is the value on this particular date. So for that purpose, we will have to probably say here in the default rate type, saying that on this particular date, this is the exchange rate for this particular currency. Okay. So that will be done here in the rate type. So we are selecting the corporate because we will have the rates already defined since this is test environment. Probably in real time, you will have to define it and then attach it here. Okay, so the defining part you can do later also. Probably you can attach it here. Okay, so then we have something called controls. So now what do we mean by control? So control is whether I am going to restrict it completely, meaning, let's say for rent expenses, I have allocated, uh, let's say $10,000 is the rent expenses that I have allocated for this particular department or the branch. So now, if I want to probably restrict it, which means that this transaction shouldn't be completed or this should stop at this point itself. So I can enable absolute. Absolute meaning that this will hold the entire process. So now we have the other option that is advisory. So what advisory will do? Advisory will basically throw a warning message saying you are crossing the budget limit, but this is not going to stop the transaction processing. So still I'll be able to proceed further, but this will give me a warning saying that you have crossed the uh, allocated budget. Okay. So the third option that we have is the track. Track meaning it is not going to stop the transaction, neither give a warning message. It is just going to track the spendings that we are going to make. So let's say I'm making a rent payment of $12,000. So now this is going to track this and say we have overspent of $2,000. So how I can identify this? So I'll be able to see there in the dashboard, and if I want to run through reports, I can take from there. Okay, so that's the option of track. So none, we will not use it because we are basically trying to use this option. Okay, so for now, what I'll do is that I'll use absolute. Okay, and this is nothing but the tolerance. So tolerance is understandable. So let's say it's the same example, 2000. So now if I have 20% tolerance, which means system is going to allow, even though I have absolute. So I will have to specify for which ledger I'm using this. This is ledger, not this. Okay, I think I'll have to give the access. I think I have given access. What is that? Let's see if I can save this. I'll not be able to see. Okay, so it's almost 9:45. So probably we'll stop at this point and we'll continue on Saturday. Okay. Okay, so before closing the call, do you have any question or any clarification that you need?
I will ask you later.
Sorry?
Ask you.
No, can you be a little louder? I couldn't hear you
Hello.
properly.
Now
Yeah, yeah, now it is
I will
fine.
ask you later. Done for now.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, we'll close this call. We'll meet on Saturday. Thank you.